And I really wrote it to myself before I started on the quest, because I named it Break Proof. And the reason why I named it Break Proof is because when you think of the term break, you can take a break and evaluate what's going on, or you can be doing something and not really paying attention to things that aren't working, and then all of a sudden something breaks.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, Be It Babe, welcome to the podcast. I am thrilled for you to listen to who is up next. Jenn Drummond is our guest, and I'm just so freaking glad I got to interview this woman. I am on a high, and not just because, that's pun intended. You're going to hear why, because she did some pretty badass stuff with some really high mountains. And if you're like, oh, Leslie, I don't really care about the outdoors, you stop. You're going to keep listening because there are so many amazing lessons along the way. And if you are someone who is busy, you've got lots of demands on your life, you must listen to this episode because our guest today abso-freaking-lutely is going to help you see what is possible. I can't think of a better person to tell a mom or a person who just has a lot on their plate to show them like what is possible in your life. And I'm just really freaking thrilled for you to listen to this amazing human being. So Jenn Drummond is our guest today. I want you to listen to all of it. And then her Be It Pod, her bold, executable, intrinsic, targeted step is awesome. You're going to love it. It made me smile. And this is really going to change your life. I can't wait for you to hear it. Have an amazing time listening. All right, Be It Babe. I'm really excited about this interview today because this woman is, well, you're going to hear in a second, like she's a fucking badass. Like I'm actually staring at incredible, like just so much achievements in this world. And she's a mom. You're going to hear how many children she's a mom to in just a moment. But Jenn Drummond, you are on the Be It Pod. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone who you are and what you're rocking at?
I'm Jenn Drummond and I'm rocking at life right now. Woo, woo. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. So, in your life, what are you like, what's your thing that you're so excited about right now? How do you show up in this world? What's the thing that you're most working on? Because I know that you're a climber and all these things, but like, how did that even happen?
Yeah. So let's bring us back, right? So I had a car accident, which was a line in the sand, right? So pre-car accident, post-car accident. Pre-car accident, I graduated from college, took a job in financial services, built my own successful firm, hired myself out of a job to become a full-time mom. And I was a stay-at-home mom to 7 children. And it was definitely fulfilling in the beginning when they needed me. But then all of a sudden everybody goes to school and I was kind of lost in this limbo land and sold myself on the idea that once they got to college, I could get back to me. But right now I'm in the season of motherhood. And then the car accident happened. So I got into a horrific car crash that should have taken my life, but didn't. No one knows how I survived. Like the police rebuilt the accident. We couldn't build a scenario where I lived, let alone walked away. And in that experience, I realized I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. And the choices that I was making at that time of putting my life on hold and waiting until my kids were in college was not good. Like not okay. Like I was no longer okay with that. I was like, wait a minute. I don't care what people think anymore. Like, I am glad you have an opinion. I'm more afraid of not being able to see, experience, explore, taste, like do all the things this life has to offer than like whatever society thinks I should be doing.
Yeah.
And so the car accident, I say, woke me up to living. And I had a conversation with my kids and I said, hey, Les, guess what? Mom's making some changes. I'm going to do you, but I'm also going to do more of me. And we're going to have a little bumpy road as we figure out this rhythm, but I'm here for it. And let's have conversations and let's do this. So 2019 became a year of the bucket list. I would say. I'm like,
I'm so glad it was
alive!
2019. I'm so glad you weren't going to do a 2020 bucket list. Like
Yeah. So I was pre-COVID. I was prepared for COVID before I knew COVID was coming. And so I was making this bucket list of like, if I died tomorrow, what do I want to do? What do I want my legacy to say? What do I want to be known for? Being a stay-at-home mom, not it. I'll be honest. I mean, I love people that thrive at that. I'm not thriving in that environment. That's just not how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So I had this huge list, and in 2020, I was turning 40. So I'm like, you know what? On this list, I'm going to take mountain, and I'm going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday to launch that decade and have it be significant and all these happy things. And so I'm getting ready to train. I called some friends that are into mountaineering, and I said, if you could climb one mountain in the whole world, what would it be? And the general consensus was a mountain named Ama Zablam. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's that? They're like, well, it's a mountain in the Himalayas. Well, Himalayas were on my list, so that was win. It meant the mother's necklace. I'm a mom to 7 children. That kind of felt appropriate.
Yeah.
And then my friend's like, it's the Paramount Pictures logo. I'm like,
I've seen that.
Mountain. I see that. Like, yeah, let's do this mountain. So I'm training, and then COVID hits. And as you remember, none of us are traveling anywhere.
Yeah.
And all of us that had children in school are now homeschool teachers because school shut down.
And also to like 7. So what, can we just go, like, what are the ages of these? Like, did you have triplets and an extra, or like how did you get to 7?
I know. And crazy story. Like I had, like, I couldn't have kids naturally, right? Like I was trying to get pregnant. It wasn't working. Like, the one thing we're born to do, and of course my body won't participate, figure that out. And I went to a fertility clinic. Nothing worked for a while. And then finally one day they came up with this chemical cocktail that turned me into a hen. And we got 28 eggs in one cycle.
Oh my God.
So anybody who's been through the fertility treatment stuff, like, I hear you, I see you. I am so sorry. It is a horrible journey.
It's horrible. It's hard.
It's hard. I got 28 eggs. The 28 eggs became 14 embryos. I viewed embryos as life. And so those 14 embryos became 7 children. So I'm here to survive and tell you about it.
But did you have one at a time? So you had one at a time?
They did 2 at a time,
okay.
And only one ever stuck.
Okay.
Except for, and if anybody's been on this journey, you know how they rank embryos. And so they used your best ones first, and then your worst ones are at the end. And they thought out of 14 embryos, I might get 2 or 3 kids based on the quality.
No, you got one every time.
Yeah. And I got one at a time. And then at the end, they plant the last 2 eggs. I get twins. So like, figure that out, right? So I have 5 boys and then twin daughters. I'm grateful. It's amazing. I would have never planned it, but I couldn't imagine life without it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Cause my brain is like, do we have how far apart are these kids? Like, are you at 14 and
they are so close together. So for example, my oldest right now is 16 and my youngest are 10. So, yeah, I was like afraid that somebody was going to break into the embryo clinic and steal them or do weird things. So we're using them, and we're using them now.
You
so
were like having Irish twins every year for 6 years.
Yeah, totally. 100%. My son went to school and he's like, Mom, at school, they tell us babies are blessings. I'm like, they are, honey. He goes, are we going to get a blessing every year?
Yeah.
I'm like, I think we're running out. I think we used our quota. We'll see.
Oh my God, you're amazing. Okay. So your year of like, I'm going to mountaineer this thing, all of a sudden got like, it probably felt like such a huge obstacle because now you are a homeschool teacher to 6 grades, like 6 different grades of kids.
Oh yeah, totally. So I'm a homeschool teacher and I'm like, what just happened? And one day my son is struggling with his math homework. And I'm giving him the proverbial pep talk, like, we do hard things. You've got this. Like, don't you worry. And he looks at me in the face and he goes, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? And I said, honey, it's Ama de Blom, not I'm a Dumb Blonde. Okay? Finish your homework. We'll look at Everest. I know. So he did. We did. He went to bed. I was still looking at Everest and I thought, you know what? If Everest is like the hardest, biggest, most magnificent thing someone can climb, I'm going to climb it. And I'm going to show him that whatever Everest is, were capable of doing. So
Mm.
by the end of the week, I had a coach hired to climb Amma and Everest. And this coach, right? Like, go figure, this is my life. This coach sends me a book about becoming an uphill athlete, because I was an athlete, but it's different when you're going vertical than just,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I get this book and I'm reading it. And in the front of it, there's a lady who got a Guinness World Record for doing something in the Alps. And I remember thinking, man, I could have done that. Like, I can suffer. And I got a Guinness World Record. My kids would think I'm the coolest mom in the whole world, because that's how they learned how to read. And right now, homeschooling, I'm not cool. Like, there's zero cool about this mom right here. So I have this conversation with my coach. My coach is like, well, I'll think of something. I'm like, okay, fine. But listen, I'm not growing pumpkins or speed eating hot dogs or doing like any of those weird things that people do to get into like the Guinness World Records. He's like, don't worry. I'll come up with something. A couple of weeks later, he calls me and he's like, Jen, I've got the perfect record for you. I'm like, totally forgetting our conversations. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I think you should be the first female to climb the 7-second summits. Like, what are the 7-second summits? Like, what are you talking about?
No,
like, well,
no other female has done this yet?
No. So he goes, listen, it's the second highest point on each continent. It's only been done by one male. It's harder than the first 7, and you would be the first female to do it. And he goes, 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 children. It sounds like a jackpot.
Oh my God. All I can think is like, but you haven't climbed a mountain yet. So like.
No, I did one.
Okay.
I mean, I live in Park City. I skied a few mountains. Like, come on, but no. I mean, I hadn't slept in a tent. Yeah. I hadn't done like any of these things that maybe you should do when you say yes to mountaineering.
Yeah, because it's not even like a tent that like I've camped in. Like, these are like little tiny, like, you just unravel it for one moment and then you put it back up and you go. Like, this is not, it's not glamping.
Yeah, I mean, what details? So I looked it up. I talked to my kids, and it was, like, life's timing. Like, life is so much a timing. And so I'm like, this is perfect. No one's done it. But so if I fail, who cares?
Right.
It hasn't been done by a chick before anyway. So whatever. And I wanted to travel. What a great way to go to see all the different continents. And I wanted to empower women because I put myself on hold. And I wanted to do something where other women would watch and they'd be like, wait, that little girl right there climbed mountains and she has how many kids? Like, what? I want to know more. I wanted to trigger that curiosity, because when we're curious, we have power.
Okay. You said a couple things in there. That one is amazing. Everyone hit rewind. And then also, I loved when you talked about like, if I can't do it, who cares? Like, if it doesn't work out, like, that is actually really interesting, because we put so much pressure on ourselves about doing. Sometimes we don't even get started because we like put so much pressure, but like, it's almost like if you try and it fails, it's going to be okay. Like, no one's going to be like, oh, Jenn Drummond failed. Like, no one's doing, no one even knows you're doing this goal. Like, no one's even aware that this is happening.
Right. And for me, like, I think the big thing with the accident, just going back to that time in my life, like, I remember, I mean, you lose this, but I wish you didn't lose it. But for the beginning of time after the accident, everything was magical. Like, I have 7 kids. They fight. I mean, it's just part of life. And before, when they would fight, I'd be like, okay, like, let's stop fighting, get along, everybody be happy. After this accident, I caught myself watching the fight. I didn't interrupt. I didn't care. I actually sat there in awe thinking, isn't it amazing how I produced both of these children, and they're so passionate about their view that is opposite of their siblings, that they're angry that their sibling won't believe the same thing they believe. Like, there's actually a beauty to that experience if you can get out of it and just witness it and be like, this is living. This is doing you. I have an opinion. It's not going to be for everybody, and that's okay.
That's such a cool way to look at your children fighting. I will never forget the time that my brother and I were like totally fighting. We were just like we're hitting each other. We're screaming at each other, this whole thing. We're young guys. Don't worry. There's no like actual abuser. And my mom watched and she's like, are you done? Did you figure that out? And she, for the first time, did not yell at us about it. She just like let it happen. And we both were like, okay, I guess we're done there.
Yeah, I guess that happened. We're over it. Thank you. Onward.
But I do love that you brought up, like, it's really hard to keep that where like everything is magical and you can observe it and go, wow, I'm here. It's kind of like anything that's new. Like we recently bought our house, and like when we first moved in, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like we have this house, all this stuff. And like, it was like, and then all of a sudden it's like the same place you wake up every day. You forget like this is incredible achievement that I have. It's a really hard thing to keep the preciousness and the gratitude, the presentness there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the present.
Yeah.
Right.
So 2020, your coach is like, this is the goal we're going to have. This is a Guinness World Record you can have. The second sevens. Okay. That's I've never heard of this. It sounds really cool, but it does sound, how can it be harder than the first ones? That seems really crazy to me.
So it's, like they're judging them off of height. So for example, Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, not the hardest by any means. So K2 is the second tallest mountain in the world. And K2 is the difference between elementary school and college in difficulty for Everest. I mean, it's just a lot harder. And so uniquely, the second summits are harder than the first summits. And they're just harder to get to. There's not as much information about them. They're harder to navigate, just all the little pieces that go into it.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. So then from the time you hired your coach to like you actually scaling up the first one, like how long did that take you? What did you go through? Did your kids come? Like, how did this go?
Yes. So this is not a kid sport. So they were spectators from home. It was interesting because I took on this quest in 2020. A lot of where I climbed was determined on what countries opened due to COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So the first country that opened was Chile in South America. And so I climbed Ojos del Salado, which is the second highest point there, in December of 2020. The next mountain that opened, and mountains have climbing seasons. You always see Everest climbed in May. You always see K2 climbed in July. Like that's just how it works. So the next one that was in season that opened was Mount Kenya in Africa. So I did that one in February of 2021. Went to do Everest afterwards, even though it's not a second summit. I did it to train for K2.
Got it.
After Everest, I came home and went to go do K2, and I didn't summit. We had a terrible tragedy happen. A teammate of mine died in an avalanche, and another one got hurt in that same avalanche. So when I had the choice to continue up the mountain or go down, I chose to go down. I truly believe that who we are as people is more important than what we achieve, and that the mountain will always be there. And it's really important in our pursuits, whether we're climbing mountains physically or metaphorically, that we put people over peaks. So I came home, headed off to Russia next. So Russia was in September of 2021. And this was like, go figure. So it's Russia. Attention was like not what it is today with Russia, but it was definitely like, can you get in as an American? What's going on? And Russia's a very technical climb. So you want gloves that you can feel the mountain because you want to be able to get that feedback. It's like tying tennis shoes with mittens on. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So when you climb, you really want to feel the mountain. So I curated this perfect gear to go climb in Russia because it was a technical climb. I land in Moscow and my bags are missing.
Oh my God, no.
I'm like, what? No, that's cute. Where are my bags? They're like, no, they're not here. We don't know where they are. And the guide was at the airport. And he's like, we need to go. Like, you either climb now or you're not climbing because the weather's going to change and this is our window. I'm like, well, I don't have any of my stuff. Like, well, we can go to a rental store and see what they have. Okay, I don't know if anybody skied in rental gear, but come on, really? Okay, sweet. So we go to this rental store, and like Russia just opened from COVID. It's September 2021.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers COVID, but it kind of turned into this outdoor fanatical time period in life. So none of these stores have any gear whatsoever because there's no inventory because no one's shipping and making anything anywhere, right?
Right.
So I go into this store. I have to buy this jacket where I roll up the sleeves. I have to keep a backpack on by a carabiner, otherwise it falls off my shoulders.
Oh my
God. I have like boots that are 3 sizes too big. I looked like an orphan. I'm like, okay. And then I'm a girl. The coat that fit me was maroon. I hate maroon. I'm like, I can't wear a maroon jacket. It's gonna look bad.
It's not your color.
It's not my color.
Yeah, you're a bright
I have given up a lot right now. You've drawn the line.
Oh my God. This is so crazy.
It is.
Because also like with those things, like there are certain things that you feel good in, you feel confident in, and you don't feel confident in maroon. And now you have to go climb this mountain and shoes are 3 things.
And let's just add this little detail that I don't share very often. I didn't have underwear, right? Because my underwear is in my bag and it's not there or whatever.
Yeah.
And in Russia, they don't have normal. It's a different type of store. I don't know if I should say the word normal because that says it's negative, but it's just different.
Yeah.
And so the store that we're going in, you know, resembles more of a 7-Eleven than maybe a Target.
Right.
And so they have like a few pairs of underwear. I walk out of the store with Scooby-Doo underwear that has like a little penis pocket thing because they're for little boys. It's the closest thing that's going to fit me. So that's what we're wearing, friends. Let's party on.
So okay, I want to know, did you get to that peak? Did it work? Did it work out in all that gear?
I summited that mountain in Scooby-Doo underwear and gear that didn't fit. And here's the other thing. Like I broke a toe going down because my feet kept slamming into the front of the boot. And so it was so painful that for part of this mountain, like the second highest point in Europe, I'm butt scooting down the side because I don't want to bump my toe into the front of the boot anymore. I'm like, thank God I don't have my GoPro right now because it's gone in luggage land because there could be one more thing that goes wrong at this moment in my life.
Oh my God. I can't believe, but I love that when you write your own book someday, or maybe you did already.
I did.
You did.
I did. You guys have to buy it.
Did you have a Scooby-Doo chapter? I feel like you needed like
they cut it out.
Oh, geez. Cause that's so funny.
I know.
There's so much like, it's so, I can imagine it. Like my husband and I, did the mountain in Jeju. And and the name is escaping me, but it's the highest mountain in South Korea. So which we used to hike all the time. And in LA, we like stopped hiking when we moved to Vegas, and it's 6 miles up, 6 miles down. And 6 miles up is the easiest fucking thing in the world. The 6 miles down, I fell twice. My foot was shaking until it hit the ground because like it's the going down the mountain is actually the hardest part. And I was like, I wish I could go down on my butt right now, but that is not happening on this mountain. So I just was like trying to go sideways. I turned around, like it was a whole thing just to get down. And when there was like no way to get a cab there, and this girl was right in front of me, and she walked up to the only cab that was there, but she hesitated. I said, "Oh, are you not taking that?" And she's like, so kind. She's like, which was her fault, not mine. She's like, "Oh, you can have it." And I was like, "We're taking it." And I just grabbed her. I was like, "Get the fuck over here. Get in this car. We're never going to get a cab. And we're going straight to a massage place right now."
No, what people don't understand is the downhill is when most of the accidents happen. Like more people die on the descent than the ascent. It's crazy.
That's such an interesting thing. So, okay. So that was your second or third of the summits? It was
my fourth attempt, third summit.
Okay.
And then I went to Antarctica and climbed the second highest point there. Yeah. That was a pretty epic adventure. That mountain has only been summited by one female before me and only by about 15 people before me. And the 2 years prior to us going, they had no success. So when we were looking at the notes, right, the notes are a few years old, snows happen, weather's happen, whatever. And you're like, okay, well, is that rock missing because it rolled down the mountain? Is it underneath the snow? Did we take a wrong turn? Like it's very interesting when you don't have as much information when you're starting on a pursuit, and how much energy it takes just to do all the little movements because the path's not paved. And I really like linked into that mountain, realizing that every step we all take is so significant for the next generation to be able to do it more efficiently and then go further than what we were able to do. Antarctica was cool. And then from Antarctica, I went to climb Mount Logan, which is the second highest point in North America, next to Denali. We didn't summit. We had terrible weather. It was too dangerous to continue. So we came home, went back to K2 and summited. So woo!
Okay, you did it.
And
yeah.
Did it. Yep. And then went to Australia to climb Mount Townsend, and then waited till May again to climb Mount Logan because the climbing season is in May. And we had summit success on June 1st of 2023, and the record was set.
Oh my God, you are your Guinness World Record holder right here. Holy, and also that's 3 years from like less than
like
3
two
years.
and a half years.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Also, as someone who has to fly to Southeast Asia a lot, I don't know how you got flights to half these places because they're just because they opened up doesn't mean anyone's like, did you have to take boats? Like that's just the journey to even achieving this goal is really cool. I feel, and I just want to highlight what you said about the Antarctica. It's like the footsteps you're taking. It's like you are leaving a path for the next person, and we're all doing that. And so sometimes when we're like, I have to tell myself it's not easy. I can't always accept it. But like when you're like, okay, I'm doing this challenge. It's the fucking hardest thing I've ever done, but it is going to be easier for the next person behind me. And if that on some days it can help you just take one more step.
Again, whatever you need to do to get your mind to allow you to do one more step.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is where the magic lies.
So, okay, 2.5 years. Now, do your kids think that you're the coolest? Like are they as excited about this as
This is my son. This is my life in a nutshell. If I could give you a 30-second overview of what my life is like. I land in the airport. My son gives me a hug. Mom, congratulations. It's so awesome. You're going to be in the book. Yeah, honey, I'm super excited. Mom, you bad breath. What have you been doing? Like, I've been on a plane for like 10 hours. Thank you. I love you too.
Yeah.
And that's life.
That's life.
Right? You're like the coolest thing in the world, and then you're something gross. And that's how it goes.
I guess it's a balance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a balance.
I mean, but I have to imagine that the training for this is really hard when it's any time of the year, especially when you have, or anybody, but also adding on all the kids you have and homeschooling them and getting them back into things, and they have needs. How are you able to like add this into your life? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. Adding something new can be so hard, whether it's to the budget or to the time or to the calendar. And you don't just like go for hikes in Park City and like learn how to mountaineer. Like I'm sure there's like a lot of things you had to do, hours probably every time you went to do it. So how is adding this into your life?
Yeah. So the nice thing is that it is accumulation, right? So at least I'm climbing 7 mountains. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go swim a sea and sail a boat and hike them out. Like all of it is building off of each other. So you do have that endurance piece and just that knowledge that kind of accumulates. But my training did not look like my friends who had no children or who had no jobs, right? Yeah. My training was very much intentional and very structured. So on Sundays, I would put in my calendar for the week with my kids. I'd fill in all my work stuff. And sometimes I had to do it by the month. But then on the weekly basis, I'd break into it and I'd be like, okay, coach, here's what I have left to train. And my coach would look at me like, okay, funny. Like, what am I going to do with this? There's nothing I can work with. I'm like, well, I have to pay for my life and I have to feed humans. So mountaineering's the third thing. And what would happen is we started to get creative. So when you have restrictions or limitations or whatever, that's not a no. That's a time to pull out the creativity bone and figure out what you're going to do. And so some of the meetings that I was on, I didn't have to be visually present. So I could walk on a treadmill and do the Zoom call, right? And I had this little thing called this Firefly. I don't know if you met Fred the Firefly, but
yes,
Fred the Firefly is a very nice friend of mine. And he listens on all my Zoom meetings that we invite him to. And he takes all the notes for me. So then I can be walking. I'm like, oh, Fred caught that. I'll make sure I look at it a little more detailed later on. And so that was helpful. And then when my kids had soccer games, right? Soccer games are an hour and a half. They're forever, especially when your kid's not good. They're even longer, but they're an hour and a half. And so I would bring a 12-inch step to the game. I'd bring a backpack full of water bottles. And I was that mom, like standing on the sideline, doing my step ups while I was watching the game instead of the mom that was sitting there just watching. So I had to make it work.
I think that's so cool. I love that you brought up the Firefly. We use Fathom. You guys There's so many note takers out there now, and they're so great because they'll highlight all the questions that are being asked. And you're like, someone asked a question. What was that question? You have to like listen to the whole thing. I love that you utilize the tools that were out there to be as creative as possible. And I actually think that the busier you are, the more likely you are to succeed at the things you want to do because you have to make it work. You can't go, oh, I'll do that workout later because this came up or this came up. Like I have friends, I'm on a thread on some WhatsApp with like 50 something people, which is chaos. And I'm like, when do these people sleep? When are these? And like, sometimes they're planning all these things. And I'm like, they're like, oh, I wasn't able to make it. This came up. And I'm like, no, I make everything happen because if I don't, there's no other opportunity later in the week to recap that. Like it has to happen on the day it is. And I find that it makes me a person you can rely on for sure. Cause I'm going to show up when I said I was, because that's when it's going to happen. But also it really helps me hold myself accountable to the challenges I want to take on for myself because I don't have a time to procrastinate. So I think that can also be great.
Right. Like I don't have an option. It does now or does not ever happen.
Yeah. Does now or does not. And then also, your kids are seeing you still being there for them, but also creatively finding a way to be there for the things that you want to do, which I think is really cool for them to learn.
Yeah. And we're doing life in parallel, right? Like before it was me kind of preachy. Oh, do your homework, eat healthy, exercise, blah, 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 blah. When you're doing it with them, yeah, I don't want to eat healthy either, honey, but I have to. Or I don't feel like working out, but if I don't, I could die. So I have to work out and you need to do your math. And this is how it works. And so you can just relate to each other in those pain points and motivate each other to continue on. And I think that's benefited our relationship at a level I didn't expect.
Yeah, I imagine you're right because I think sometimes kids just want to feel seen in their things. They don't actually need you to tell. They know they have to do their homework, but like they want to say it's hard and they want to be able to feel their feelings. And instead of you telling them like, just do it anyways, you're like, yeah, I feel that too. Like I think that's actually really healthy.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
Yeah. So, okay. So you did that. In 2.5 years, you did something no woman has ever done, which is insane. Like when you think about it, 2.5 years is not a long period of time. What did you do to celebrate that? Because I feel like it's so important. Did you have time? I mean, you have life that you have to go back to and work and kids. So, but like, was there a time that you could like celebrate what you did before you like made a new goal?
Yeah, I have not made a new goal.
Cool.
So
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. And I want to share that because I think our society preaches what's next, what's next, what's next. And we forget to enjoy what is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made a promise to myself, like I was not picking up another goal for 12 months because I'm a fast start and a hard stop. So I need to be very cautious of what I pick up. And for me, I was like, you know what? I want to teach my kids to appreciate and respect the rest, respect the recovery, and respect like the cycle of life. It's not always go, go, go. We need to nurture and nourish ourselves to be able to go when the next thing calls. So I'm very much taking an intentional gap year or whatever you want to call it. I do have a book coming out in January. So it's named Break Proof: 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals. I wrote that along the journey. And I really wrote it to myself before I started on the quest because I named it Break Proof. And the reason why I named it Break Proof is because when you think of the term break, you can take a break and evaluate what's going on, or you can be doing something and not really paying attention to things that aren't working. And then all of a sudden something breaks, right? You don't get the job, the relationship has an issue or whatever else. But it's in those breaks that we have the proof to know what's working, what's not working, how do we want to continue forward, what maybe we don't want to continue forward and we want to pivot and go another direction. Whatever that is fine as long as you continue to pursue life. And so I wrote this book and I take people on the adventure of the different mountains I go to, extract the different lessons that I think fall under the category of resilience, help the reader figure out, oh, if I have a big goal, it's going to take a big team because big mountains take big teams and just all these little things that help you have those. Oh yeah, I see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's where it didn't work for me. Here's some things I can do to maybe get further up the mountain next time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited about this because I mean, even as you're talking about the different things that you like how to do along the way, wear maroon, but also, like that sometimes you show up to things and you don't have all the tools that you've been practicing with. And like the show does go on and you have to decide how you're going to go through with that. I mean, I'm so glad that one worked out because I don't know that you would have been able to get in again to Russia. But I'm excited for this book. We'll make sure it's in the show notes for when this episode comes out and everything, because I think a lot of our listeners would love to like hear the story. I mean, it was just, I hope someone makes a movie about it too. Like I hope you have a whole team doing that, because it's fun to see the challenge, but also reflect upon what we learn along the way. It's not just like how to be a better mountaineer. It's like everything can apply to the rest of your life.
100%.
Yeah. And I'm relishing that you're like, I'm going to take a gap year, because one, it allows you to probably finish this book, and also really kind of that's a freaking crazy accomplishment. And also like, what do you want to do next? I think we do move so fast to the next thing. We don't actually pay attention to like, is this what I want to do? Or is this like what other people want for me to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Easy to get caught in that cycle for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, you're amazing. We're going to take a brief break and then we're going to find out where people can hear more about you. All right, Jenn, where do you hang out? I mean, if you have time to hang out on the socials or the websites, like where can people get more from you?
Yeah. So my website is jenndrummond.com, and that's Jenn with 2 N's. And if you head there, you can pre-order my book, which gives you a whole bunch of fun freebies and all that good stuff. I have some challenges there. I do speaking events. I have a course. And then also all of my social medias are housed there. So depending on what platform you prefer to communicate on, reach out, say hi. I love connecting with people. That's why I do podcasts. It's just so fun to hear other people's stories and what mountains they're taking on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that's really great. It's really great. Before I let you go, you've given us like a lot of life lessons along the way, but in case people wanted to wait till the end for that last final bit, what bold, executable, intrinsic, or target steps do people take to be it till they see it? What do you have for us?
Yes. Okay. So I have this red light by my house. And for the longest time, I get so grumpy because I'm on the short side. So I always hit the light red. And I'm a person that's super busy. So these people who have morning routines that seem to take the whole darn day and can journal and gratitude and all this kind of stuff, I don't know those people. Like I've never met one. I'm never going to be one, I don't think. So one day I'm sitting at the red light. I'm super grumpy because it's red. And then I sat to myself and I'm like, you know what? I'm the only person complaining about this red light. The red light is not mad that it's red. Only I'm mad at it's red. I'm done being mad at the red light. I'm going to turn this light into my gratitude light. So every single time I hit the light red, I'm going to start going through my gratitude list because I don't have time for a gratitude journal. And this is a way to like get it into my day. And so everybody in my car knows like, Mom, we hit the red light. It's gratitude time. And everybody goes through their gratitude. And this has changed the switch on this story so much that now when we hit it green, we're like, oh man, we don't get to like do our gratitude now. We got the green light. And so I'm sharing that for everybody listening because I'm sure you hit red lights in your life. And when you do, take the pause and be grateful.
Yes, because gratitude and judgment can't live in the same space. So what a fabulous way to use that time. Oh my gosh. You're full of awesomeness. I'm so glad we met. I'm really just like, I'm touched by this whole interview and I'm really excited for everyone to hear it. You guys, how are you going to use these tips in your life? What was your favorite takeaway? Tag Jenn Drummond, tag the Beit Pod, share this with a friend who needs some help climbing a mountain in their life. I mean, what a great way to inspire the people around us. And Jenn, just thank you for showing how you can be a mom of 7 kids and take on your amazing dreams and how you made it work. Because I know that that's going to be so helpful for every single person who's listening to this. So thank you for being here. And until next time, everyone, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Beit Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Kroll.
It is produced and edited by the epic team at Diseño.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals and Semena Velazquez for our transcriptions.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all the content to our website, and finally to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.